timely, insightful, discussion and analysis of economic trends and markets. From Southern California to Sacramento, featuring business and political leaders, unique field reports. From Orange County and the campus of Chapman University, this is the Chapman Business Report.
Welcome back to the Chapman Business Report. It's our weekly look at business, the financial markets, and a special focus on the regional economies of Southern California. We come to you from the main campus of Chapman University, and just a couple of blocks west of me here is the Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, where I practice running the broadcast journalism program over at Dodge College. And the man just behind me, housed just behind me at Beckman Hall, is Esmael Adibi. For better than 30 years, has headed up the Anderson Center for Economic Forecasting and Research. We'll talk about the latest numbers. They just concluded their 34th annual economic forecast at Essie and Jim Doty. We'll talk about how those numbers, what they portend for 2012, California, U.S. And we've had some recent numbers. Holiday shopping, pretty good, boss.
Yeah,
pretty
decent,
good.
decent.
I was in New York. A lot of people spending money. A lot of people, period.
The bags were full.
That's always the test. I agree. You know what they're doing now is they're buying on credit again.
Yes.
And then, excuse me, we'll duck in our student feature story. You come to the end of a semester, and one thing for sure, students and teachers are about to kill each other. And so what better way to settle the score than on a soccer field? Alex Bachner is a neat story, but let's get right to the numbers, boss. And then first, why don't we recap your forecast first for the nation?
Sure. You know, the national economy last year went through a hiccup at the beginning of the year. We had two major problems. Japan, and then Libya's unrest and higher gas prices. So beginning of the year we started really bad, and at the end of the year
never slipped into the red.
No, but the growth fractional. Yeah, that's not as strong enough. But the third quarter came out a little decent, and the fourth quarter should the number is not out yet, could be above 3%. Part of it, as you said, consumers are spending.
They are.
Whether the bags are full or not, but they're using the credit card.
Right, they're certainly spending online. Was I think we were looking at.
It was pretty good,
yeah.
And it's still in January. You know, people are using lots of gift cards, so there's still some shopping that is going to kick in.
And throughout the year, people bought cars.
Cars, yeah. It's a mechanical unit. It's just breakdown. Lots of people had 3-year leases, so all of that really led to GDP growth, the total output in the country, last year to grow about roughly between 1.8% to 2% for the year as a whole.
But that's last year.
Last year. This coming year, we think the growth is going to pick up a little steam, but not still that strong. About 2.3% growth compared to about 1.8% growth last year. Now, some people say this is horrible, but given everything is going
Look around.
Yeah.
Let's take Europe. Does anyone have 2.3% growth?
No, Europe
Germany did, but I think Germany's fallen off a little.
Yeah, fourth quarter Germany number came out, actually it's negative, almost negative 3%. So Europe is a major.
Only the BRIC countries would be doing better. Not that 2.3% is great.
Yeah, the BRIC is doing
Canada,
good.
maybe,
and
Mexico.
Canada, Mexico, and even Taiwan, South Korea,
sure.
You know, they're doing better, obviously, than anybody else. So growth of 2.3%, obviously, number-wise is better, but to get really strength in the job market, see, we tie everything back to the job market. You can't count on 2.3% growth to create huge hiring. Because think of you as a CEO, you're running your own business and your sales goes up 2, 3, 4 percentage points. You're not going to rush out and hire people. So for really hiring to kick in, you know, in larger scale, we need much stronger growth, and unfortunately we don't see it.
We got the slight extension on the payroll tax cut.
Yes.
How much would that affect hiring? Does that payroll tax cut, by the way, does that also extend to the employer portion of the payroll tax?
No. What they have done, that would have helped, obviously, the hiring. Here, the goal is not really to create jobs. This is
give people more money to spend.
Exactly, indirectly.
I'm just thinking, obviously, employers pay that as well.
Exactly. Directly, they want consumers to have more disposable income. That's a 2 percentage point that you're not paying on your payroll. And that extra money, they're hoping that it's going to go through a spending, and that's going to indirectly help hiring.
So for 2012, then, a larger point, the economy's really on its own. No more fiscal stimulus for 2012.
It doesn't look like it, although the president still is pushing to extend, you know, the payroll taxes, because what they did is, this is just for January and February. He's hoping to extend it for the whole year, obviously, and also he's hoping to extend unemployment insurance for the whole year. Now, if those two kick in, it's going to help, again, consumer spending somewhat. But fiscal policy, we're running out of options with the huge deficit and debt.
Although the Fed pushing, and we'll get to this in our next show, the Fed pushing for more housing stimulus.
Yeah, they're again coming up, and this particular push that they want to make is for Fannie and Freddie, the homes that they have. And
they might rent them out. They
or package it.
Right.
Package these homes, sell it to investors, and let the investors deal with it rather than Fannie and Freddie. It's a very difficult task to pull through. And again, it needs approval of Congress because Fannie and Freddie now are government-owned operation.
Right. And no one looks very kindly as a practical matter on Fannie and Freddie. Hard to see that happening.
Yeah, it is difficult. I'm not that optimistic to do it. But let's go back to the job numbers.
Right.
Yeah. So with 2.3%. GDP growth, our forecast is that the U.S. economy is going to generate about 1.8 million jobs. Now, the question is how many did we generate last year is about 1.4 million, which makes sense. A little stronger growth.
Means we're getting close to the halfway mark of recouping the 8 million that we lost?
8.5 million that we lost. So with the now the question is, everybody ties this back to unemployment rate. 1.8 million job, if we're correct, divided by 12, is about 150,000 on average job creation at the national level. We need about 125,000 jobs every month to just absorb the new entry to the labor force. So with 150,000, you can imagine unemployment rate is going to be very sticky downward. Right now, the current number is showing 8.5% unemployment rate, but most of that obviously is people are leaving the labor force.
Leaving the labor force. I'm looking at November and December. Yeah. We're good in terms of the jobless rate. Yeah. We went from 9 to 8.5%. Now in November we had 120,000 jobs.
December was about 200,000.
Right, and then 200,000. But you drill down in the numbers, less people looking. Yeah. Fully a fifth of the 200,000 were what they call couriers and messengers.
They're going to disappear.
As they say, Santa's helpers.
Yeah, they're going to disappear.
And they say January is a traditionally bad month for jobs reporting.
Yeah.
For what you just said, but there's some nuances to it. They include companies they think will not be around and subtract jobs. Yeah. So wouldn't be surprised to see that number pop up.
Yes, unemployment, I don't think. Actually, the 8.5 that you just referred for November, they revised that to 8.7, and then they came with December of 8.5%. Now, having said this, we have to concentrate again on job creation rather than unemployment rate. Right. Unemployment rate is based on a survey that they call people and they say, are you working 1 hour a week for pay? And if you say yes, they count you employed. So there's lots of underemployment is going on. That is people who are working part-time for a few hours. The key factor that eventually is going to help the unemployment rate, the economy, the spending, the GDP growth is job creation. And 150,000 jobs per month would be the best since recession started, but it's not going to be enough to bring unemployment rate below 8%. So we probably end up December of this year, about 8% unemployment rate.
Looking at Orange County, we're a little better than the nation. It seems like that's what we've been through this whole, since 2008, we're about 8%. Again, we didn't create jobs, though.
Yeah, but we have to be careful again. We always mention it to our audience that when it comes to local numbers, they don't seasonally adjust it. So when you don't seasonally adjust it, you see quite a bit of variation month to month.
Right.
But if you look at the November number, we don't have Orange County's December number yet. When you look at that compared to last year, we're growing about 1.1, 1.2%, about 15,000 jobs in Orange County. And at the state level, about 180,000 jobs more. So the message that we're trying to give to our viewers is that economy is improving. I mean, barring any unexpected, we expect that to gain a little bit of a momentum, but it's still, it's not going to be very strong.
And you've been, I say, a little optimistic about the state, and yet I look mid-year, and we'll talk in our next show about the governor put out his budget, and but I look mid-year, and the budget, by the way, presumes that those tax increases will stay, $12 billion. Yeah. But at mid-year, we have a budget shortfall again.
Yeah, it was expected.
It was.
When they put the budget together in June, and we talked about it, previous shows, they basically bumped up the revenue projection. And they knew spending, so they bumped up that and made a balanced budget so the lawmakers can get their paycheck.
Thinking there'd be what, a housing recovery?
Oh, it was all phony. phony numbers, I believe. And we even warned that you're going to be short at least by $2 billion, and it looks like they're even short more than that. Now they have some automatic cut that is going to kick in this month, basically affecting a whole bunch of different categories. But the real question is, what are we going to do for the next budget cycle, which starts July 1st of this year, going to June of next year, 2012,
right.
2013.
And he puts out a budget that's kind of a wash in that he assumes the $12 billion in tax increases stay in place.
Yeah, no, actually he's going to put on the ballot in
right.
November some tax increases, and they assume that those are going to pass. They
right.
put it in there. So really,
but we're going to have them through 2012, or no?
Those taxes?
Yes.
No. If it passes, it's going to kick in basically 2013.
2013. So right.
It helps them in 6-month period
right.
there. But they incorporated exactly. They incorporated in the budget, and they say, well, this is a budget that we like
right.
to work with. But I think that voters are sick of tax increases. In all likelihood, especially because the governor
polling pretty well.
Yeah, but see, the voters, they want to see some fundamental change. Yes, there are some people, obviously those who are exposed.
He did trim his budget. We're at $92.5 billion for 2012, 2013. Stealing from our next show here. He did trim, he says, by $12 billion. No.
No,
but
some of these are shifting. Some of these shifting.
It's not the systemic.
No, see, the problem is that when you look at the budget numbers, and I've been doing this for almost 20 years.
Well, you consulted a controller.
Yeah, every year you see some shift of responsibility to another entity, so money goes from one fund to another.
Nothing on the pension front.
Nothing on the pension front, and that's what I think. If the governor really wanted to do some fundamental changes, if he would have done something on the pension front, if he would have said, okay, give me the taxes that I want, but we limit spending growth and really stick with it based on some sort of a formula. If people feel that we're moving in the right direction and tax increases are truly temporary, then I think people would be sympathetic.
To refresh folks' memories, it's a half-cent increase in the state sales tax. And then the marginal rate on income for top earners?
Top earners, there would be a surcharge,
right.
About 0.5%. But again...
And DMV, I think, also, or no?
No, there is no DMV. It's basically income and sales tax increases. And then, I don't know, some of our viewers probably have heard that State Board of Equalization actually is going to tighten the screw on how much property taxes you can deduct. You know, because right now, whatever property taxes you pay, you can put it as a deduction on your income taxes. But they want to break it down, and they won't allow some of the special assessments. So they want to collect money any way possible.
All right, but we think it was a pretty good holiday shopping season.
Yes.
So the consumer which is of course 2/3 of the economy, is doing their part, and you expect them to continue to do their part? December hasn't come in yet, but December should be a good December.
I think so. Look at it, and there is funny things happening with the statistic. You know, we do a consumer confidence numbers, and if you look at consumer confidence numbers, the last one that we did, it showed consumers are worried, consumer confidence is dipping
especially
down.
In
California, and they're not planning to do any big spending for the next 6 months. And then when you look at actual spending, they're doing it. They say one thing, they do another thing. But of course, I think we have to separate between two groups of consumers. There are some consumers that are exposed to financial market. That is, they have money in a stock market, retirement account. And generally speaking, although the stock market didn't do as well, still they feel pretty good.
If they looked at when they look at their fourth quarter statements, they're going to be happy.
Yeah. So see, those people are the ones that are coming out and buying and carrying those bags. Then you have a group of consumers that are basically wage earners, and probably they own their home that in value is still stagnating. So there is a dichotomy here. Some consumers are, when you look at home prices and your wages that is not going up, they would feel poor, they want to cut back. The other group is doing its share. But when you put them all together, there's a pent-up demand. You mentioned it at the beginning of the show. People are buying cars because, you know, if you don't buy it, at some point you have to buy it. And then some people who were worried about their job, now they feel a little more confident, and they're buying that flat TV.
Sure, and a lot of people have improved. The savings rate went from 3% to 5%. That's a massive increase. They've improved their balance sheet. Means they might be credit worthy again or have better credit, and we saw it. I think one of the biggest 1 month increases in December in consumer credit. Now, you may say long-term that may not be a good thing, but short-term...
right now, unfortunately,
we'll take it.
Everybody wants consumers to spend. But having said this, let's look at another phenomenon. Again, let's divide the consumers. Those who own their home, they're not underwater, took advantage of this low interest rate environment. So they did refinancing.
Sure.
So as a percent of their disposable income now, on average, people pay 11% of disposable income to service their debt. That is interest on their mortgage, interest on credit card. It used to be as high as 14%. So this money is kicking in.
Exactly. But that's the consumer. Now, there's three other prongs to the economy. And exports I would be concerned about. The euro is at a historic low, 18-month low, I know for sure. And, you know, we sell a lot to Europe.
Yeah, for the U.S. is much bigger problem.
And they come here in Southern California, tourists.
Yeah, for U.S. is much bigger problem than California.
Because we sell a lot to Canada and Mexico.
Exactly. When you look at the U.S. and look at the top 10 trading partners of U.S. when it comes to international
England's
trade.
number one, I think.
No, with the U.S. is still, we have Canada and Mexico on the top, and China is on the top. But then you see a whole bunch of European countries showing up. United Kingdom, Germany, France, Netherlands, Belgium. And these countries, they're all Europeans. Whether in Eurozone or not, they're all suffering. They're all, in a way, in recession, which means less demand for our export. But then, when you look at California, get the 10 largest exporting or our trading partners, you don't see very many European countries. You only see Germany and Netherlands, and they're doing okay.
I see, maybe this is just because we're going early here. Alcoa's earnings, and in fact, the company lost money, and it's a big international company. They sell aluminum. It's part of almost any manufacturing process, and they lost money, and the number one culprit, they said, was...
Yeah, but no, be careful there. Again, on the revenue side, they did pretty good.
They did it right. They had a one-time charge.
They did. They had a big one-time charge. And obviously, you know, industrial demand, you know, they sell aluminum to who? Construction industry, automobile industry, and durable goods.
Sure.
So that's not going as strong.
Again, we can't expect any help from government spending.
I don't think so. I mean, we almost at the end of the road. The debt is 15 trillion. The present estimated deficit is going to be almost 1 trillion, and they have to
fourth year in a row.
Yeah, they have to.
Fourth fiscal year in a row.
They have to raise the ceiling again. We don't know what we're going to go through that to get it up to about 16 trillion, and we're exhausting that sources. And on the Federal Reserve front, you know, we're almost out of weapons. So we have to really put our faith and growth on consumers, on export market,
and business
investment. Business investment is very strong. You know, corporate America is loaded with cash.
You're not worried about fourth quarter earnings?
No. I think they're going to all come out.
A lot of revisions down on the S&P 500, am I right?
But it's still, I mean, when you revise down 12% increase to 10%, it's still...
It's like 15 to 7.
Yeah, but still, I think corporate America is loaded with cash.
The stock market's held up so well?
It should have gone more. You know, if you have such a low interest rate environment, you know, stock market typically does very well during that type of environment.
With oil still at 100 and Brent crude at 100?
That's exactly where I wanted to point out. With low interest rate, practically zero interest rate, the stock market should have been up.
Some investors are actually buying negative returns.
Yeah, on German bonds. But the reason the stock market didn't do better with this kind of a corporate income was mainly the hiccup that is coming, or the signals that are coming from Eurozone, that makes everybody nervous about our banking system. So financial stocks didn't do well last year, and that was a big drag. Otherwise, if we did not have these externalities, situation in Eurozone, situation in Iran, that's a big unknown, and its impact on oil prices, stock market should have done even better than what it did last year.
Which was, as I mentioned, in the fourth quarter, the S&P was the best since 2009 when we had the big dead cat bounce.
Yeah, but for the whole year as a whole, not much of a change. I mean, you don't see Dow probably end up a little bit higher, but then everything else was flat or a little down. So.
Finally had a little give back on gold and silver. What do you interpret into that?
It's all, it's a hedge against uncertainty. You know, we are still worried about the Eurozone. If Euro goes even lower than what it is, it's about 129, I guess, to dollar. Some people saying it could go as low as 1 to 1 back to par. And if Euro basically disappears or collapses, a major problem, where do you put your money? I mean, you just said negative yield on German bonds, so people buy gold as a hedge against uncertainty and against inflation. I mean, inflation could still be a serious problem, not necessarily this year, but because there's so much slack in the economy, but there's so much money out there that potentially can create inflation. And even when you look at Eurozone, one of the solutions they have basically two options, and both of them requires them to print more money, which is inflationary. So gold and silver are holding their value at these high level. It made a little correction from like 1900 down to 16. Now it's going up a little bit. It's all hedge against uncertainty.
Europe remains the biggie, and it doesn't seem like, even going back to the original problem, Greece, that they've really done anything yet.
No, nothing fundamentally has been done. And the solution is very easy. We can allocate one whole show to that. Their ECB, their central bank, like our Federal Reserve, they have to basically buy some of these sovereigns' debt and start printing money. Based on current treaty that they have, they cannot do that. ECB cannot do that. And the only way they can do it is revisit the issue and change treaties. And I think Germans and French don't mind to go along with that, as long as they put some fiscal discipline on these weaker countries. And of course, those weaker countries, they don't want to give all of their autonomy to some entity in Germany. So that's what the problem is.
For the benefit of folks who don't know, why does a country like Greece, and we know there's Italy and Spain as well, but it started with Greece, the size of Indiana, why is it so important to the world economy?
It's a banking issue.
Everyone owns Greek bonds.
Yeah, see, Greece is 3% of world economy. I mean, it's so small that even
3% of
world economy.
Greece?
Greece.
0.3% maybe?
I think it's about 3%.
Can't be.
Yeah, we bet.
We bet.
I'll check.
I don't think it's 3% of Europe.
No, it is. We'll check. But let's say 3 is on the high side. Let's say it's lower than that.
We'll check.
So you can see if they go through a deep recession, nothing is going to significantly happen in terms of import and export. The problem is if they default, practically they defaulted, they're giving the money basically to pay the banks. If there's a serious default and extends to Italy, which is much bigger economy and much more borrowing, then the impact on the banking system in Europe, maybe a collapse of a couple of major banks like we had here in 2008, and the side effect for our banking system. That's the major problem.
Did you participate in this soccer game, faculty versus the students, a couple of weeks ago?
I'm too old for that. Maybe I could have been a goalie. I don't know why they didn't invite me.
We wouldn't have to run up and down the field. Well, this is a pretty neat idea, way to settle the score. Alex Bachner will have that story for you when we return on the Chapman Business Report. Back on the Chapman Business Report, Pete Weitzner joined by the boss, Dr. Esmael Adibi. Time for our student feature stories. As I mentioned at the top, you get to the end of the semester, students, faculty, all want to kill each other. So better they settle their score, just like they do in soccer, right? There's some tensions. Soccer's a great proxy, as it was here. Take a look as they squared off a couple of weeks ago.
We give the grades. We got the power. Look out, students. Time to cower. Go, faculty.
With 3 days before the dreaded finals week at Chapman University, students and professors have chosen a friendly game of soccer to relieve their stress. But after just a few minutes, competitive spirits soon began to rise as both teams refused to go down without a fight.
I know their mean side now. They're not all they're cracked up to be in class. There's a mean side to them.
Our team, probably only half of us know the rules of soccer, so we're at a great disadvantage, but we're holding our own.
The head of this event, Dr. Patrick Fury, hopes that this face-off will loosen tensions between faculty and students and provide a fun outlet in an otherwise stressful time.
It's to have a nice, relaxed atmosphere at the end of the semester. It's to enjoy the sunshine.
It was not the normal crowd that Ernie Chapman Stadium is used to seeing, but nonetheless, plenty of students and faculty came out to cheer on their counterparts.
I think it's good to have some healthy competition between the students and faculty.
Yeah, who doesn't want to see their teacher like run around on the field and
make a fool of themselves?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, I've got to root for the faculty, but that's, really rooting for the underdog in this case.
Pride was not the only thing that teams were playing for, as the coveted Squirrel Trophy was to be given to whichever squad came out on top. After an hour of play, the final score, a lot to a little in favor of the students. But today was not about who won or lost. It was about having fun before finals week. That's something both students and faculty alike could definitely use. At Wilson Field, I'm Alex Bachner, Chapman News.
Our thanks to Alec for that report. You notice he didn't mention a score.
Yeah, I bet faculty won.
The students crushed him. Crushed him. It's an age thing.
Yeah, I can be helpful. Hopeful.
I wonder if the faculty even got it past midfield. But it's a great idea. To the boss, Dr. Esmael Adibi, we'll see you next time. Thank you always, your great insights on the local and national economy. I'm Pete Weitzner. Thank you very much for watching the Chapman Business Report. To Jeff Cole, class of 2001, and his team, Haley Quattroni, Dan Duran, and Dan Noah stopping by just to give us his blessing. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to everyone. Let's hope 2012 continues that little momentum we had in 2011. See you next time on the Chapman Business Report.
Funding for this program was provided by Chapman University.